Right, welcome back to the Me, Myself, and Hopefully You podcast. My name is Tarek, and this week I sit down with the founder of Pretty Little Marketer, a community of over 250,000 individuals. My guest this week shares her unorthodox journey into marketing, how she went from an inexperienced marketing graduate to working with some of the world's most iconic and biggest brands in less than 12 months, and the time she woke up with bloody footprints all over her bedroom. Very interesting stories tonight with my guest at this time. It's Sophie Miller.
So, Sophie, I want to start off with asking a few quick fire questions, right?
I'm ready.
Okay, so Sophie Miller, sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Apple juice or orange juice?
Orange juice.
What's the last thing you bought?
Oh my God. A Sainsbury's food shop.
Nice. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Don't be a dick.
What's your biggest regret?
I have a tattoo on my hand.
What does it say?
It's a mountain, but it looks like a spider.
Oh, that's all right. What was I going to say? Most valuable item that you own?
I own a very expensive pair of shoes.
What's the meaning of life?
Happiness.
Who's your biggest role model?
Amelia Sordell.
If you could only follow one social media account, which one is it?
Ooh, Vogue Business.
Vogue Business, not heard that one. One thing you change about the world.
Can I say all of it? Is that okay?
Fair enough. What did your parents teach you that you'd want to pass on to any future children?
Oh, be kind to everybody.
Oh, what's the first video that YouTube recommends you?
It's called Exploring a $4 million Grand Designs London house by Matt and Summer.
What's the biggest mental health tip that you've ever got?
Prioritize self-care always.
If you could be someone else for a day, who would you be?
Dead or alive, or just alive?
Either.
I would love to be Michael Jackson.
Nice. If you could know one piece of information about anything in the world, past, present, or future, what would it be? It can't be something like lottery numbers. You can't benefit from it. It's just something information.
Oh, good question. I would want to know, is the Earth actually flat?
Okay. And what's the most important question of all time? What's the best ever donut that you've ever had?
From Krispy Kreme, I just it's like a round circle with a hole in the middle, and it's their chocolate icing one.
It's a round circle with a hole in the middle. I think that's most donuts.
Yeah, no, it's not. It doesn't have filling in.
Right. Okay, that's brilliant. Right, very much. I want to know more about this tattoo now. What was the thinking? How did this tattoo come about?
There was no thinking. So
Okay.
The 25-year-old Sophie you see now is very different to how I used to be. When I was in my teens, I was very sporadic. I an idea, ping, do, let's do it. And I woke up on my 18th birthday, and a lot of my friends, the people I was hanging around with, they all had tattoos. And I was like, well, I'm 18, I'm big, I want one now. I saw a picture on Pinterest, and it was someone who had a mountain on the side of their wrist here, and it was two really simple lines. It was really kind of dainty and elegant. I went somewhere in my local hometown, and I got the complete opposite of what was just described. So it's had 10 rounds of laser removal. It's actually scarred because the laser removal place that I went to had their temperature or some sort of setting on too high. So it's actually scarred now, never coming off. And yes, here it is for anyone who would like to try and see.
Please tell me you sued this company for having the laser removals wrong.
They're actually not in business anymore.
Oh, okay.
But it's just one of those things, isn't it? We make these decisions sometimes. But yeah.
You've got a story to tell, at least. Notice you got another tattoo on your other arm, haven't you?
Oh yes, another regret. This is
it?
Tiara. And then I have another one here that says immeasurably more, as a reminder that you can always do more than you think you can. So yeah, just the three.
Any regrets on those two, or?
All of the above.
All of them, really?
Yeah.
When did you get the other two?
3 days after my 18th birthday, and this one was probably 6 months later, so it was all in a very kind of quick time frame. I think tattoos are beautiful and awesome, and such a good way to express just who you are and use your body how you want to. But for me, not for me. But they're on the skin now. So
What you need to do, you need to get a full arm now. So you've done like bits of the arm. Imagine you, Sophie. It would be the best thing in the world if like tomorrow on LinkedIn you just posted a full arm sleeve tattoo. Have all the social media platforms down, the logos all down your arm.
pretty little.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be
Awesome,
sick.
done. Sign me up. Hit
When
my
you
card.
when you hit 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, that's what I'm expecting now. Take me through Sophie Miller when you were a very very young girl in school. What sort of student were you? Were you quiet? Were you reserved? Were you quite loud?
Oh, good question. I think that like students, Sophie, very much changed over the years. So in like really tiny school, baby school, probably under the age of 10, I was rather reserved, like quite a playful kid. I never wanted a ton of friends. I never wanted to be like in the big crowd. Ever since I was younger, I've really valued people around me that are trusting, that I can love, and really have values that align with my own. And I think even in those primary school days, I cherry picked the people that I just knew were my people. So yeah, never the kid at the front shouting. I kind of just got on with it. Under 10. When the teens rolled around, especially late teens, like 16 to 18, in those sixth form ages, I was a little bit of a nightmare. Yeah, you would never expect it now, which is really strange. And when I look back on the person I was like 7, 8 years ago, it couldn't be like any further away from who I am right now.
Because you're like the sweetest person on LinkedIn. Like but I was not expecting this sort of what. So were you a bit of a rebel? Like, tell me a bit more about this side of you.
Yeah, kind of like, hey mum, I'm staying at my friend's house, but then really like getting blackout drunk in a field, kind of 18-year-old vibes. I had a fake ID that I used to go into clubs when I was 17. I was having stomach pumps in the hospital because Sophie just made awful decisions. It was like a result of, I think, for me, secondary school going into sixth form was a really odd dynamic for me. The relationship I was in at the time was very young. The friends I had potentially weren't the greatest. So I think those influences for me as a young person definitely led me down paths that maybe I wouldn't have chosen for myself, but definitely a learning curve. I think it taught me a lot about who I am, who I want to be, what I stand for, and what I really value. So no regrets in those times. Just grateful I made it through them to where we are today. But yeah, lots of learning, lots of changing, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
Okay, well now you need to tell me. You need to give me at least one drunk story or one sort of memory from that rebellious stage.
So where I used to live, in my family home, I'm in my own apartment now, but my family home that I lived in up until 2 years ago was about a 10-minute walk away from like the city centre. I lived in Gloucester, not a very big city. And there was one night where I had lost all of my friends in the club, as you tend to do. I was out with a bunch of about 18 to 20 girls. So you can just imagine the total carnage that would go on one of those nights. Lots of crying, a few arguments, lots of boys getting in the way of having a fun time. I'd lost everyone. And the way it replays back in my head is kind of like a movie on fast forward. When everyone's moving really quickly and very fast. In that moment, I made the decision to leave my shoes in a toilet. So I took off my heels, put them down like a toilet bin or whatever that part of the toilet is called. And then I ran home. I sprinted home. And it wasn't until the next morning that I realized I'd ran through glass. So obviously someone had smashed a glass or a bottle on the street that I was physically, I'm 5'1", by the way.
Yeah.
So I'm quite small. So like me sprinting, it's like picture it in my head.
Really quick, yeah.
So yeah, I woke up the next morning. My whole bedroom at home was like cream carpet, white bedding, white furniture. So you could just see like my tiny little size 3 poor bloody footprints on the ground. That's the best I can remember. I think it's the best because it just makes no sense. I don't know why in those moments I decided to, one, put my shoes in the toilet, but second, why am I then running home? That was 7 years ago now, so I can tell that story. And yeah, my poor mum was absolutely horrified. Just carpet, floor, bed, just my little feet.
Did it come out? Did the blood stains come out?
I think so. I have to check in with my mum.
Because I'm
It's a
guessing,
long time ago.
yeah, because they would have stayed on all night whilst you were sleeping. That would have like really stained it. It's not like you removed it straight away.
Nope,
Did you go
absolutely
back to
not.
get the shoes?
I didn't know.
You
I must
didn't?
not have liked them very much to be trying to flush them down the toilet.
Yeah,
And
maybe
I'm
that's
very
what it was.
sorry to whoever had to discover them. Imagine going to the toilet and just finding a pair of shoes. It's just bizarre. But yeah, so
Honestly,
probably the most random story
if you've
that
ever
I've had.
been in boys' toilets, you'd know that shoes is probably the best thing that you could find in one of those. Trust me. I wish I found some shoes in
That
some
would be
toilet.
a blessing.
Oh,
Oh,
exactly.
nice noted.
So did you wake up with just like glass in your foot?
Yeah, I remember I woke up and like my feet were hurting. If you've ever worn heels before, boys, girls, people listening, you will know that they're not easy to wear all night. So it's quite typical that after wearing heels on a night out or like any sort of tight shoe that your feet will ache.
Yeah.
So just woke up like, oh, achy feet again, haha, funny me. And it wasn't until I kind of rolled over and I saw like little paw prints from myself on my carpet when I was like, ooh, okay, maybe it's not an ache, maybe there's something else happening here. So kind of had a little inspection, glass, shard, just chilling. My mum growing up was a nurse for a while, so she's always been very good at like getting out the human toolkit, doing what needs to be done. So my mum Jane came in useful many times when I was going through a phase. But yeah, interesting times back then.
When did that phase end, and what sort of ended it?
So my kind of like crazy, if we want to call it, if that's what we want to label it, phase ended like probably halfway through being 18. For me, I think that was because my like age of going out, drinking, like getting involved in that sort of culture started very early on when I was 17. So I kind of took that a year early. A lot of my friends in the friend group I was in were a little older, so it was kind of me trying to catch up using that awfully fake ID that is very much illegal and I do not advocate for now.
Do not condone it. Pretty Little Marketer does not advocate for.
Don't put me in the news.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend. And I think, I don't know, just something kind of switched one day when I was thinking I had finished sixth form, I wasn't going to university, and I was having a bit of a moment, you know, what do I want to do with my life? Cool, I don't know. But actually, what am I doing? What am I doing right now? And just I remember having a think about the values, what I really wanted out of my life, and seeing a real misalignment. I've never been, I don't know, I have quite strong like morals, values, ethics. I know what I believe in right and wrong. And looking at my life and thinking, oh, this just isn't me. At the time as well, like I was going through a bit of an 18-year-old breakup, my friend group was changing. So there's a lot of change in my life. So naturally it felt like it was time for me to have a bit of like an internal reflection too. And yeah, so I guess just my outer surroundings changing led me to a bit of thinking. And yeah, so 7 years on, I don't drink now for many reasons, and those few years being part of it. But yeah, lots of lessons as we've said, so not wasted time.
Yeah. I know we're focusing on alcohol here, but I found that last bit interesting where you said about how you don't drink anymore. Because I've spoken to people that have like gotten to the point where they've had to call the Samaritans, like they've gotten that drunk and that often, and it's depressed them and whatever. What are your thoughts on this sort of British culture around drinking?
Yeah, I think it is a hard one because I don't think that drinking is a bad thing. I think that we are all on this planet to make our own decisions and decide what is right or wrong for us. But I just knew that that wasn't something I enjoyed anymore. Something I often find difficult now, and I actually wrote a LinkedIn post on it not so long ago, is this sort of expectation to drink. So when I have met new friends before, when I'm out with friends, when I have previously been out with co-workers, whether it is a Christmas event or a meeting or a dinner, there's always the question of, are you not drinking tonight? Or, oh, like, why don't you just have one? And this stigma around not drinking being boring or kind of questioning those decisions. So I think it can be really, really tricky if you don't drink to socialize from time to time. I think for me, that's why it's important, again, to find friendships and people around you that firstly respect those boundaries, but secondly have similar values to you. I really value the opinion that we, like, you do you and I will do me, and there doesn't have to ever be any questions asked. There's that kind of saying that your vibe attracts your tribe, so I'm very lucky to have friends around me who are, you do you, no matter what that is, I'm always going to cheer you on. But when it comes to meeting new people, networking events, work parties, it can be a tricky conversation to navigate. Like, oh, you're in your 20s. Why don't you drink?
Why don't you live a little? Yeah. What's going to happen? Just one drink.
One, yeah. Some people just don't want to, and that should be enough. I think, yeah, a lot of British kind of socializing culture is very much built around that. And I would love to see, I don't know, just people accepting, oh, you're not drinking today? No. Oh, cool. Orange juice, Pepsi, Coke, 7-Up, what can I get you?
Exactly.
That's just from my experience anyway. Obviously, we all live our different lives. But yeah, I think it can be a shame sometimes. I'm really happy to see more conversations on LinkedIn and a lot of kind of newer startups and even bigger brands now looking at their culture and finding ways to incorporate like sober socials, or when there are work parties, like advocating for, here's your decision. There's not only, you're not obligated to drink something you don't want to or do something you don't want to. So I think culture-wise, maybe it's shifting slightly. But yeah, I think it can be a shame sometimes.
So you said that you went to university late. What were you doing in those years? Why did you decide you didn't want to go to university straight away?
So when I was 18, I've always been quite creative. When I was younger, I would draw on the walls. If my parents needed me to, stop being a toddler and having a tantrum, they'd give me like a coloring book or just something that I could play with and make mine. So I've always loved being creative. And when I was 17, 18, I dreamt of being an editorial photographer. So an editorial photographer is a person who will take snaps for the magazines. Maybe they will do ad shoots, press campaigns. So I was always into marketing without even knowing, which, thinking about it, is quite interesting. But it was a conversation with my what was he called, like my tutor at sixth form. We had like personal tutors, and we each went up one by one, and kind of, it was UCAS time. They're like, hello, what do you want to do? And someone's like, I want to do biochemistry. And he's like, oh, yes, very good. And then he'll like write down your name and what you want to do and how he can help you. The next person's like, oh, I want to do something else very academic and traditional. And he's like, yes, awesome. And then it got to me, and I kind of had to hold my breath for a second. He was like, hello, Sophie. Like, what do you want to do? I was like, well, I want to do photography. He's like, oh, sorry, what? Oh, photography. And he looks me dead in the eye and he's like, oh, well, where's that going to get you? And in that moment, I remember experiencing someone that you're meant to trust, like an authoritative figure who knows more than you, that has influence over you, just kind of that feeling of, oh God, like you're my teacher, you must be right. So we spent a bit of time having a bit of an internal crisis. That was the only thing I enjoyed. I don't come from a high earning family. I come from separated parents, both on rather low incomes at the time. Neither went to university, so when I did eventually go, I was the first in my family to go. So kind of lots of things that made university feel like a big pressure. Debt, moving away is scary. If I move away, then will my mum be able to pay the bills? And just a lot of pressure being put on that decision. So in the end, as a typical Aquarius, I decided to run away from the problem and just not address it at all, and decided I wasn't going to university. So when I look back, it is a real shame. I would hope that, conversations in schools might have changed by now, or maybe that my experience is of a minority. I would hope that teachers, lecturers, people in those authoritative positions encourage and champion their students to chase their dreams, no matter what that is. So I hope I'm in a minority, but gut feeling suggests I'm probably still not. So yeah, I decided not to go and went 4 years later instead.
Yeah. What did you do in those in those 4 years, then were you still on the verge of were you still thinking about, oh, I want to go to uni or whatever, or were you just, like,
Yeah,
nah, I don't want to go?
yeah, I was pretty opposed to it. Firstly, like that income, the stress of a low income household, and kind of the pressure of so I'm an only child as well. So at the time, there was just lots to think about. And the best thing for me was to head into full-time work so I could help support my family. So I worked for 3 years, so from 18 to 21 as an events coordinator, which at the time when I was interviewing, it sounded really creative. When you think of events, you might think of a press event or like a company event or something mildly exciting. I did like conferences for financial results. I worked with like HSBC, RBS. So although like big names to pop on the CV come the next step, it was the most boring job on the planet. I worked 6 a.m. till 2 p.m. So although the early start was absolutely horrific, a 2 p.m. finish every day was probably the highlight of my entire role.
Does sound pretty good.
I remember I would have lunch at 10 a.m. every day because obviously my day started earlier, but I'd actually eat it in my car by myself. Most days I would cry on my way to work. So yeah, not the most exciting time in Sophie's journey, but it was a conversation that you had kind of into like maybe a few months into being 21. And there was a beautiful woman who I worked with. Her name was Irina. And she had this incredible story of how she was born in Siberia. She moved across Europe to try and figure out what she wanted to do. She then moved to the UK because she met the love of her life. And she just had an incredible story. And I really, really looked up to her and really valued, her advice and opinion. And one day she saw me sat at my desk. And I remember she looked at me and she was like, Sophie, what are you doing? I was like, babes, I don't know. And just having this conversation and realizing, I remember what she said to me was something along the lines like, you are too young to feel this old. And it kind of just hit me and I was like, oh my goodness, like, you're right. I think when you're in those moments, it's really easy to just feel stuck. Like, this is my job, I don't like it, but it's all I've done, so I can't get a new job. Or you kind of find all of these very valid reasons as to why your circumstances can't change. And it was that conversation with the beautiful Irina that kind of opened my eyes to, okay, like, this sucks. And my very valid feelings tell me that I don't have any options. But let's talk it through. What can I do? How can things change? And kind of working then for my future self, which is my present self, and just spending a bit of time understanding what are my skills, what do I enjoy, what do I love. And I remember on a 6 a.m. shift, I was always the first person in. There was no one else there, so I could go on my phone, I could eat any snacks I wanted to because no one was telling me that I couldn't. And I Googled creative jobs in business with people, because those are the 3 things I love. And loads of articles came up about marketing. And really odd how I hadn't really put 2 and 2 together until that point. I didn't really understand what it was. I always thought marketing was just like the adverts I saw on telly that I wasn't too interested in. And so I spent 6 months in applying to roles in my local area. Couldn't find anything, gave up, decided to go to university instead. So yeah, it was a journey for sure, but I really appreciate that conversation. Those moments that you think is just like absolute kind of like heaven sent, like this literally had to happen. It was very much one of those moments, and kind of changed things forever, which
like
is
that, the movie moment, like the one where like everything changes and everything goes amazing. Yeah, no, 100%. Do you still speak to? Have you ever spoken to Irina since? Or
no, I haven't.
You need to get her contact details.
I know. I was actually thinking about a few people that I used to work with, who I worked with there the other day. And yeah, no, funny things just change really, don't they? It's been a few years now, but maybe I need to tell her that it's changed my life.
I think honestly, I remember probably about 2 years back, I emailed one of my old teachers. Like I found him. I was very surprised. He was at a completely different school and he was a head teacher there. I was there like, "Are you the guy that taught me in year 5?" And he was like, "Oh my God, yeah, I remember you. I remember this. I remember that." And it was one of the best emails. I was so glad because at first I was like, "This he might think I'm a bit of a weirdo," but then like because I tracked him down like by just using Google. But honestly, it's the best. 100%.
Oh,
You
I
should
love that.
go on. I bet she's on Facebook, right? Go on Facebook. You'll find somewhere. I bet it'll be worth it. So you ended up going to university. You've spoken several times that you didn't really enjoy university. You didn't feel like it was teaching you about sort of what real marketing was. Tell me about the whole, starting up Pretty Little Marketer, where that came from, and the journey since then as well, because it's been pretty mental.
Yeah, it has been. So I went to university in 2018. Did I? Yes.
That's how you know
I
you're
did.
old, Sophie. That's how you know
Yes,
you're old when
I
you forget.
know. What day is it? What year is it? Or what point in my life we are? Yes, no, I went to university in September 2018 and kind of just coasted through my first year. I'm not really sure why I went to university when I think back, because I hated school. I hate being told what to do. I hated homework. I never did the homework. I hated group work. Just everything about that school environment and how you're taught, I didn't enjoy. And although in university you have a lot more flexibility, you are treated like an adult, you are given the responsibility of a grown-up. I don't know, something about that dynamic I also hated. So again, questionable decision on my part, but kind of coasted through my first year. You know, that classic attitude of like, first year doesn't count, it's fine. That was me through my whole of first year, very much bare minimum. I didn't love the teaching. So when it came to the end of my first year, I spent that summer doing lots of online learning. I went back to university in second year, which would have been September 2019. I remember just feeling this sense of, like, this isn't anything like I'm reading on Marketing Week, The Drum, Adweek. Everything online felt like a much more exciting version of what marketing is. In university, I guess there's like a syllabus or like a standard kind of practice of what needed to be taught. But for me, it all felt really detached. I've spoken to lots of people who have had a very different experience. So I don't think it is a case of, oh, the education system is flawed, they don't teach marketing properly. I think it's a case of, I probably just didn't pick the best university for the learning style that I thrive in. So headed into second year, wasn't loving my time there, but in January 2020, so partway into my second year, I landed my first marketing job. So I was working part-time as an influencer marketing assistant, and then of course, continuing my degree. During that time, got to the end of second year, so about 2 years ago now. I enjoyed my influencer role, but I knew that it wasn't something I wanted to pursue full-time once I had graduated a year later. And I was having a bit of a crisis. Right, I've got 1 year of university left, kind of feeling like I was at 18 again. What do I want to do? I'd wasted enough time. I did a job I didn't enjoy. You know, I'm at university late, deep in it, getting in my own head. And in that crisis, just wishing that I had someone to tell me all the answers, or a place I could go to find people like me who could give me a helping hand or hold my hand through the questions and the internal crisis I was experiencing. And although many awesome online communities at the time then and still now, I just couldn't find the exact thing that I was looking for. So for some reason, in that panic and in those kind of second year worry moments, I decided to start an Instagram page. I'm often asked, firstly, how I thought of the name, and secondly, why I started PLM. It's all started on Instagram, it's an Instagram page. And honestly, I have no idea. The answer to both those questions is I do not know. I think maybe it was just too long ago for me to remember, maybe because it was born in such like a panic or like a stress that my brain has blocked that part of my memory out. All I do know is that I had a problem. I knew that it would be a shared problem and I wanted to find a solution. I couldn't find one that kind of ticked all my boxes, so I decided to try and make it myself. I didn't have a plan, didn't have a strategy, no sort of business vision. I was just posting on Instagram once a day. And then 2 years later, we've kind of ended up in a very different space and very unexpected space too. But I think, the best things are product, services, people, anything that fill a need. If you can solve a problem, then that's where the people are. That's where the great stuff happens.
I reckon I reckon the real reason is because you're like, what am I? Okay, I'm a pretty little marketer, so I'm just gonna have it as that. But you don't want to say that anymore. So PLM, right? So you've started an Instagram page. You have no idea where the name come from, even though we all know where the name came from. And you were posting a little bit once a day. How did it get to this huge community?
Yeah, I think timing was very much on my side when I reflect, when it came to when PLM started. So I started PLM in June 2020. So we were about 2 to 3 months into our first UK lockdown. So networking was off. I think in that time, a lot of people, myself included, were experiencing a lot of loneliness. We probably had lots of questions and we couldn't go to the people that we would usually go to find those answers, because we were all kind of caged away and learning how to navigate the pandemic and what that meant for each of us as individuals. I think that in that time we were looking for safe places to learn, and I think a lot of people kind of turned to like self-improvement. We were all going on our walks, we were doing, like, for me there was like this really big trend of Chloe Ting workouts, who's like a YouTuber.
I remember her.
So I was doing like the 2-week ab challenge. Like
those were intense.
Self-improvement, how can we use this time productively? Like those sort of vibes that a lot of us were jumping on. So I think time-wise, PLM came around, I would hope, for a lot of people at a really good time. And then for myself as like the community manager, grower, owner, retrospectively looking back, I think timing was on my side, very unintentionally and unstrategically. In terms of growing, I didn't actually have much of a strategy until mid last year. So I had been growing and posting on PLM for around a year before I sat down and was like, oh, this is something. Like, it's not like it could be something anymore. Like, it literally is. And I have a job now to do something with it and look after that and look after these people. But for the first year, it was very much like, okay, what can I post on Instagram today? Oh, awesome. Okay, right. 6 months in, let's try LinkedIn. What can I post on LinkedIn today? And my motivation was very much that second year Sophie, like, God, that loneliness, that kind of crippling fear that for me, going to university late was a real big insecurity that I had. Like, oh, I'm late, I need to catch up, I need to do more. And hoping that if one post can alleviate that for anyone else and help them get a little bit closer to the person they want to be or that career that they're dreaming of, then that was kind of the why, I suppose. But yeah, so very much no strategy until about a year in. And it was last year, probably around the same time, August last year, I sat down and had to think, okay, well, what is PLM? It's a community. Awesome. Who is it for? How can I help these people? What can I provide to our community to bring them one step closer to those goals? And yeah, kind of thinking about the future and what that could turn into. But a very unintentional, squiggly, crazy journey. And yeah, I don't really know how we've got here. I think when you just post online, good things can happen. But yeah, filling a need, I think, is a real key, a key driver, I would suppose.
What made you want to start posting on LinkedIn? Because you're massive on LinkedIn. You're like the UK queen of LinkedIn here. Potentially the world, who knows? Yeah, like, as in, what made you start posting on LinkedIn? Because you started posting before it's now become, not a normal thing, but quite, regular now to post on LinkedIn.
So so PLM started in June 2020, and like throughout uni, I'd always popped like 1 or 2 posts on every 6 months on LinkedIn. At uni, I was very much taught like try and be active sometimes, so then when you apply for jobs, like you look a bit better, sort of thing. So I would repost an article or like reshare someone's post, but I never dabbled in kind of establishing, hey, this is me and this is what I love and this is what I do. It was December 2020 to January 2021 when I was laid off and let go from the influencer marketing role I had. They needed someone full-time at the time, and I was a student, so I couldn't quite fill the hole, so I was shipped away and replaced with somebody new. This apartment has bills and they needed to be paid, so that is when I started freelancing. Again, very unintentionally and accidentally, I got a DM from a community member asking if I freelanced, said yes, and went from there. At that time, I wasn't charging a lot, and one client definitely wasn't enough to pay the bills. And for me, it just made sense to post on LinkedIn to try and attract clients. Again, had no strategy. I just started sharing either social media tips. I would reshare the same content from the PLM Instagram onto my LinkedIn page. I would reshare news and talk about it. I was essentially just trying to, find people to run socials for so I could pay my bills. Took me a few months to kind of really find my feet and understand, like, oh wait, actually LinkedIn can be so much more than just, a driver to my business. We can build a community there. PLM can really be enhanced. As an individual, I can meet really awesome people as well and kind of connect. So yeah, I guess the reason back in December, January was because I was looking to find clients, but very quickly learned, I can do more here, and it could be less kind of strategic and transactional. It can be a really fun space. So yeah.
Let's say, for example, you had 0 followers or 0 connections and whatever. What's the first thing you do?
Oh, good question. You see, the marketer in me wants to recommend a strategy, but for me, like all the best decisions in my life, starting freelancing, PLM, moving into even the apartment I'm in now, we moved in 1 week before lockdown. Like everything in my life has kind of been I feel this in my gut, I want to do it, so I'm just going to do it and see how it goes and follow, who I want to be and what I want to say. So I think what you're doing is absolutely awesome. I don't think LinkedIn has to be used strategically unless you want it to. For me, there's 2 parts, the why and how I use LinkedIn. Part of it is because I love it as a social networking tool. I have such fun. I love learning from people. But the second part of it is the strategy behind me trying to attract and find clients, position myself as an expert so that I can grow my business. If the latter part isn't applicable, you just want to make friends on there, you just want to grow your profile, you just want to, position yourself as a bit as an expert or thought leader, ready to kind of build the foundations for a career future, don't think you necessarily need a strategy. If I was to start from 0 tomorrow, the one question I probably would define is, what do I want to be known for? I was posting on LinkedIn for a long time before defining that question, and I kind of felt like I was shooting out content and not giving it anywhere to land. Like I was just shouting into a giant hole, and it didn't have an aim. What do I want to be known for? And in my LinkedIn one-to-ones, the best prompt that I have for this is, if someone was describing your profile, whether that be LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you want to be known, if someone was describing your profile to a friend, what do you want them to say about you? How do you want to be described? Do you want to be known as a social media expert? Do you want to be known as someone who's a really transparent new marketer? Do you want to be known as someone who's a real big mental health advocate? What do you want to be known for? How do you want to be described? And just find ways to build stepping stones to do that on LinkedIn. For me, that's through my content. So if I wanted to be known as a social media expert, I would make sure that dotted in amongst those storytelling, really fun, exciting, more me kind of posts, I would slip in, top tips, news pieces, my thoughts on certain features or kind of brand strategies. What do you want to be known for? I think that's the best aim, and that's all the strategy you need when you're getting started. Should you want to use it for bigger reasons, you want to monetize a community, you want to freelance, you want to build a business, I think a strategy should of course be in place so that you can achieve those aims. If you're just chilling, you want to learn more, you want to give it a try, but you're not really sure what that looks like for you yet, what do you want to be known for? And then start taking steps to be that person.
One of the sort of common questions that I got was, how do you do so much? Because it feels like you do so much. I mean, literally before we started, you were saying that you've got 4 new clients come on board. Like, how are you getting all this? How do you have your life sorted out so well? And how can I do the same thing?
I don't. Social media is a beautiful thing because you can airbrush both your face and your life and your thoughts and your home. I I don't. I just try. It's really funny. I actually had a networking call with Roman yesterday. Who
I had one today.
Sophie, you did.
Yeah.
You know him too, from LinkedIn, and I was talking about how I'm just a team of one. I get a lot of comments and DMs like, "Hi PLM team. Oh, thanks guys. It's awesome." And just one guy, it's just me. I don't outsource. I don't really automate much because technology really quite confuses me. For me, how would I, scheduling as much as possible really helps me. I think that I really understand how I work best. So I know that I wake up and literally about 30 to 40 minutes after waking up, having my breakfast, I will be at my desk really early. So I start my day at about 7. And then I also try to finish early, about 3, 4 p.m. I know that that's what works for me. So just figuring out what those processes are. I also have like a trillion to-do lists. So I use Trello as a to-do list. I tried Notion. I don't really understand it. So if anyone has any tips, please drop me a DM because I would love to be able to use it.
Roman's a big advocate of Notion. He was telling me to use it today.
I need to like either buy or download some sort of template because starting from scratch, I just can't wrap my head around it. Batch creating, being organized for me is a real lifesaver. I think for me, the bottom line of it comes down to if I don't do it, no one will. Like at work, I can't I don't know that people would, but I can't slack off because someone else can pick it up, or I don't know, leave it to next week because then someone might forget or the team might take over for me. Like I don't have that. And I guess that pressure fuels me in some sort of crazy, slightly maybe twisted way. But yes, organization, to-do lists. I use Trello. I find it really helpful. And a tip that Sedge actually shared in our webinar together that I've implemented a while ago is doing your easiest and quickest tasks first. So as soon as I wake up, any emails that don't require like a big document or lots of planning, I will reply to DMs, WhatsApps. If I need to send quick files or update a spreadsheet, I do all of those kind of mini things in the morning. Then the rest of my day, I try and implement time blocking. So I assign tasks a time. If it's not done in that time, it doesn't matter. I just move on, and then I will reflect my next day to kind of adjust for those unfinished tasks. So time blocking is something I find really helpful. But although all of that sounds very structured and easy, I promise I don't do it all. There are days when it all goes absolutely tips up and I don't do anything at all. Sometimes emails, deadlines get missed. No one's life is as easy as the internet makes it seem. I often struggle seeing really awesome entrepreneurs who I think are doing so much more than I am, achieving all and doing it all so easily. And I just have to remember that nothing, like it's not the reality. And we all have different capacities too. So someone who has 8 podcasts, 100 clients, that might be them at 70% capacity. But for me, that would be like 300. And Ellie Middleton did a really awesome post about that the other day. And I think that's why comparison can be so tricky. But yeah, in like practical terms, Trello, keeping organized, doing those really easy tasks first is something I find helpful. In real terms, the real life is I don't do it all. I don't kill it. I don't smash it. I don't boss it.
No, you are smashing it. You're smashing it, Sophie.
But it's messier than it looks.
How do you keep on top of all the algorithms, especially with Instagram changing like every other day?
I don't automate, that's not the right word. I like the way I receive information, I don't go hunting for it. My best few recommendations would be Adweek, The Drum, both of their newsletters. The Drum in particular, they do like a daily newsletter that I find really helpful. Matt Navarra on Twitter and his newsletter are absolutely awesome. I think his surname is Navarra. If you just start typing in Matt Navarra, then I'm sure it'll come up somewhere. His newsletter is called Geek Out. He shares like updates, feature updates all the time, especially on Twitter, and then he has his newsletter. I also follow like the LinkedIn page on LinkedIn. I follow Instagram on Instagram. But yeah, you don't have to go out there reading and seeking news and, you know, like reading it all with breakfast or in your lunch or trying to catch up, it can come to you. So those few newsletters are really, really awesome. Matt Navarra on Twitter as well. And what I find helpful as well on Twitter and other social platforms is when I find someone awesome like Matt, either looking at who they follow, or, you know, when you follow someone and recommendations come up, kind of flicking through them, because there are lots of people out there doing the work for you, and that's exactly what they're there for, to make your life a little easier. So yes, those newsletters I find really, really awesome. I think that would be kind of the best place and the only place that I really rely on for staying up to date with things, because there are a lot of changes a lot quickly.
I want to ask you one final sort of question that other people have asked, and it was about the future of PLM, but also what's your biggest moment at PLM?
Ooh,
like one moment where, like, whether it was a particular brand or something happened, like you went, oh my God, this is so exciting, like this is mental, I can't believe it.
Oh no, good question. I think one of the craziest things that ever happened, I went ice skating last December. I went to Bath. They do something every year called Bath on Ice. And you know, like when you've booked tickets somewhere, you go up and they obviously ask your name. Like, oh yeah, what's your name? And I was, oh, it's Sophie Miller. And I like had my little tickets on my phone.
Yeah.
I hate talking like to new people, especially in real life. It's terrifying. So I'm kind of like there shaking with the phone, like, oh, my name's Sophie Miller, I'm here to go ice skating. And the really lovely girl at the desk was like, oh, I think I follow you on Instagram. And that was my first ever in real life interaction with someone from the internet. And I went with my partner James, and he literally had to pick up the conversation for me because I couldn't talk. I was like, oh, okay, you do? Oh, that's exciting. And just trying to like navigate my way through this very, very new.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I was starstruck.
Yeah.
So James had to be like, yes, Sophie runs an Instagram page, don't you, Sophie? Trying to like help me out in the conversation. And then I kind of quickly ran away to put my skates on and then fall over a couple times when we got on the ice. But I think that moment for me, when you do a lot by yourself, for yourself, it's really easy to forget. And I think any creator or anyone who posts online might relate. It's really easy to forget that there are people that you are actually impacting, like someone out there is learning from your content. Or, you know, when you talk about how you want to do more videos in a LinkedIn post, someone out there is encouraged and inspired to potentially do the same. And forgetting that social media really can be this tool for awesome and good things. So I think that moment for me, even just 6 months ago, I was like, goodness, there's real people out there, and kind of what we're doing when we're staying up late to create our content, or spending a Friday afternoon after a day's work doing your podcast, like you are impacting people's lives positively. So I think that was like a real kind of, okay, cool, like this is, maybe we're achieving things here moment. So that was really cool. What was the other question?
Future of PLM.
Ooh, good question. I have no idea. I am asked this question all the time, and I don't know. The best decisions in my life are the ones that I make very sporadically. So, you know, starting an Instagram page, going to university, starting freelancing. I would love to have some sort of like proper like community one day where people can get involved. In the future, one day I would love my own agency, but I think right now I have lots of ideas. I was talking to, I think it was when I was talking to Roman yesterday, had this moment of realization recently that I retire in 50 years, and that's actually a long time. I think it stems from like this insecurity of going to university late and constantly feeling like I have to try and catch up. But I have a tendency to kind of like, okay, what's my next step? How can I get there now? Where do I want to be? And how can I get there as quickly as possible? I just want it to be mega. It has to be massive, and kind of like running with these thoughts. And whilst I think it's really great to be ambitious and it can be a really good driver for awesome things, I have 50 years left until I retire. And if I do it all now, it's going to be a very boring 45 to the finish. So yeah, I think for me, it's just been a real case of recognizing that we don't have to do it all now. PLM's growing, the people are amazing, I love what I do. Will it change in the future? Maybe there'll be more, maybe it'll look different, but I will figure that out when it feels Right. So yeah, no big exciting answer. But yeah, got 50 years to figure it out.
Exactly. Potentially more, God knows, with the way the world's working and how
Oh God.
expensive
Oh
everything is.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
it
I'm
could
gonna
be
be
even
working
more.
to 100, I'm sure. Gonna have a
Potentially,
mortgage
yeah.
one day, gonna have to pay that off. And yeah,
But
so
I can fully see an agency. That's why I was asked when I asked that question in my head. I was saying I can fully see a big like office. You know, like how those massive offices have like a huge logo at the top here. I can see
like, yeah.
PLM there. It would look sick. Can you imagine? It'd be all.
I think like agency wise, my dream is just to have a team. Like I don't actually care about doing work. I'm quite a loving person. I think it's because I was brought up in a very loving household. I was always encouraged to like, treat others how you want to be treated. Be kind, like go the extra mile for anyone that you can. And watching my parents practice that every day, and even still now, 25 years after my birth, like I cannot wait to potentially one day have a team that I can encourage or inspire, or like have the funds in my business or resources to make their lives better or help them achieve their dreams. And I'm so excited to just have people to look after and champion and encourage, as well as hopefully, do some work too and achieve good things in that team. But yeah, so long term, 5 to 10 years, perhaps we might see a different business sprout, but we'll see.
Actually, I got one final question. It's the question that I ask everyone. If you could go back and speak to your 19-year-old self, what is one piece of advice that you'd give?
Oh, good question. I think my best advice would just be just do it. It sounds really crap and like a bit of a cop out, and I'm sure many people have given the same answer. But like when I was 18, I wanted to go to university to study photography. Someone told me not to, so I didn't. When I was in my events coordination role, I wanted to find something new. I told myself I couldn't, so I didn't. I think, life, although seemingly long, like my 25 years on this planet so far, feel like they've been an eternity. But essentially, I think we do get one go over, and it does go quick and it is short. So why would you not want to spend every second of that time just doing what you want to do, within reason, of course? But if you have, you want to post on LinkedIn, do it. I talk about this often on LinkedIn, but I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder when I was 14. So new things often scare me. And my like automatic thought process is that, oh, it's going to go wrong. So for me, I actively work to challenge my thinking on like, okay, well, what, like, oh, it's going to go wrong. Well, what's going to go wrong? What, no one's going to like your post, or, that literally is the worst thing that could potentially happen from posting on LinkedIn. You start an Instagram page. It's going to go wrong? What's the worst that can happen? And kind of challenging your thinking. I read a quote a while ago. I spend a lot of time on Pinterest because all other social platforms are just exhausting. And it was this like reframing thought of, rather than like what's going to go wrong or what's the worst that can happen, well, actually, what's the best that can happen? And if you can think it, you can achieve it, you can do it. So just having this like unrelentless drive to just do it. Why not? Like, who cares? Why not just do it?
Just do it.
And that's it for this week's episode of the Me, Myself, and Hopefully You podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It was an absolute pleasure to finally sit down with Sophie. I feel like this was a long time in the making, but it's finally out, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please do share it with your friends, with your family, aspiring marketers, people who are already in marketing. I mean, she's the queen of marketing. There's a lot to learn from her. But especially to those who are probably in university, who have just finished university and don't know how to get into the post-grad world, or maybe they have no idea what they want to do with their life. I think Sophie is a perfect example of how in this day and age you can create your own opportunities through a podcast, through an Instagram account, through a Facebook page, and it was just amazing to finally sit down with her and ask her all my questions. So if you did enjoy, please do share it, hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss out next week's episode, where I sit down with Ilona Carafin, who went from having a deadly disease as a child to then becoming an entrepreneur, to then becoming a philanthropist, to now traveling all over the world and basically just absolutely smashing it. It's a very, very exciting episode next week, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Have a great week. Until next time.